Happy New Year, guys. I hope everyone's had a safe start to the new year. I want to start this new year with a brand new watch. A watch that something special. I bought this watch from the most dangerous shop in the Southern Hemisphere, from Defined Watches here in Australia. I have visited the shop twice without any intentions of buying anything, and twice I've walked out with an empty wallet, a watch on my wrist, and a huge smile. And I'm still paying off that credit card, so you know. Now what happened is I walked into Defined Watches. I wasn't there to buy any watch, and a gentleman walks in the door and he had this watch on his wrist, and I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, gee, that's a really good looking watch. But we started talking. As it turns out, he's one of my viewers. You're probably watching this video, you know who you are, but we're talking and I'm looking at his wrist. And every time he's not looking at me, I'm looking at his wrist, and I couldn't get my eyes off this watch. I'm thinking, gee, that's a pretty watch. And you see, I'd already seen this watch in the display cabinet at Defined Watches. And although it was nice, it caught my attention, it stood out from the crowd. But I didn't like one thing about this watch. It's got a highly polished case all the way through. It's a 103 series. And I'm thinking, if it was brushed, maybe I would have gone down that road. And I mentioned that to Peter, and Peter goes, yeah, no issues. He goes, we've got a service and we can actually get it brushed for you. I walked out with a watch. This watch is more than just a vintage looking watch. It's actually got the modern tech in it. I want to share a couple of things in this video that I think you're going to be pretty impressed, because it looks impressive, but it also operates on the same level. But really, that's what Sinn is known for, their tech and their ingenuity. Now, the watch that's on my wrist is called the Sinn 103 ST-TY HT Pilot's Watch. That's a lot of words. And what they stand for is, the ST means that the watch is made in steel, the TY means it's got a tachymetric scale, and the HD means it's hand wound. And this is the first 103 in 20 years that features a hand wound caliber, so it's long overdue. And for me, Sinn is reinterpreting the classic watch. You got the 369 traditional dial layout. It's a very vintage feel. Now, from that period, this watch is actually an homage to an original watch that Sinn released back in the 1970s, the Sinn 103C. So if you look at that particular watch and this watch, they almost look identical. So this is paying tribute to that watch. And that original watch back in the 70s had its design based on a Matthew Tissot. Now, back in the day, a lot of these manufacturers had very similar design layouts in their watches, in their cases, their dials, and what have you. And looking at this watch at arm's length, the first thing that drew me in is its resemblance to the classic Paul Newman Daytona. So for me, this watch is paying tribute to an era and a generation that's long gone, but it's not forgotten. Now, looking closely at this watch, Sinn seems to be reinterpreting the classic watch, because this watch is not only oozing classic vintage watch vibes and a wonderful wrist presence, but manages to deliver modern tech that Sinn is well known for. You'll notice there's no screw down crown and no screw down pushers. And yet the watch offers 200 meters of water resistance with Sinn's D3 tech, as well as low pressure resistance. Now, would you take a chronograph with non-screw down pushers and a non-screw down crown in water? Well, this has been pretty much living in water ever since I bought it, and it's been fantastic. They've also armed the watch with a solid, reliable workhorse in that Sellita SW510M. It's got around 60 hours of power reserve, and choosing a movement like this, it's renowned for its solid performance and reliability. So it's pretty much bulletproof, as a proper tool should be. Now, in addition to that, Sinn has used a shatterproof acrylic crystal, which has a twofold advantage here. Number one, that crystal gives a very vintage warm look of that dial. So they've captured that essence beautifully. And having the right amount of distortion at the extreme edge, it gives both a visual delight as well as magnifying the tachymetric scale when viewed directly from above. In other words, when I look at the watch on my wrist, the proportions look perfect. However, when I look at it on a vertical straight down, the edge of that crystal magnifies the tachymetric scale and it looks perfect, without any distortion, and it brings exceptional legibility. So you can easily read the fonts and use this watch for its intended purpose. So there's a lot of spunk going on in this watch, as well as practical convenience. Now, when I bought the watch, I bought it as is, fully polished, and I used it for a couple of weeks, and then I sent it in to get brushed. And now for me, it's no longer a fingerprint magnet or a smudge magnet. And in my eyes, I think it looks better. So Sinn, if you're listening, I hope you're watching this video, get some brushed watches happening in your 103 series. I think that's what people are wanting. They just look great, in my opinion. Actually, and on that note, another thing that I want to share is this red strap. I borrowed a red strap from Define Watches from the U50 range, and it seems to suit the watch's look to a T. However, because it's from the U50, it doesn't fit perfectly. So Sinn, again, if you're listening, can you make a red strap for the 103 series? Because I think watches like this are screaming for it. I think it just makes a perfect companion with those red accents and water sports activities. But in saying that, guys, because Sinn doesn't have a red strap available, I did buy the black rubber strap, and I ended up matching it up with a tegimented black clasp with some on-the-fly micro adjustability. So with any water sports activities, this is now ideal. And the reason I got it on a black clasp is because I didn't want the clasp to be a standout. It blends in with the rubber strap, and it just gives me an overall more visually pleasing look, in my opinion. But again, it doesn't stop there, guys, because I did say that Define Watches, it's a dangerous shop because you walk in and it's like a candy shop. You buy things, you just, oh, I like this, I like this. You need some self-control. I ended up buying the H-Link bracelet for the 103 series with their brand new on-the-fly adjustment clasp, just to add another dynamic and functionality to this watch's purpose in my collection. Although I've found several gripes already, this is not a review, guys. This is me sharing with you guys what I bought, why I bought it, how it came to be on my wrist, and I'm going to share a video probably several months down the track to explain to you guys what my experience has been on the wrist. Just like I shared recently with the IWC or the Dawn Bluth as someone who's lived with a watch. And speaking of gripes, one of the first things that I really didn't like about this watch, it's a limited run. Sinn has limited this watch to a production of only 1,000 units worldwide. I'm not a fan when manufacturers do that. Because if you're not ready to buy a watch, then this might force your hand and pressure you into buying something. Now, a lot of you guys are going to ask, hang on, Pete, we know that you've got 8 watches in your watch box. Which watch came out so this can come in? And there's a bit of a backstory, guys. About 8 or 6 months ago, roughly, I was speaking to a very good friend of mine on the phone, and my friend's been very sick. He's had his own watch collection in the past. He had to sell it to fund medicine, to fund doctors and so forth. He's even lost his job, and he always keeps saying to me, Pete, one day I'm going to get that watch that you've got, that Seiko Marine Master. And that thought's always remained with me. So I spoke to Ian. Ian's another friend of mine. I gave him my Seiko Bullhead several years ago. He gave me his Marine Master. We did a straight trade, a straight swap. And we promised each other that we'll never sell these watches. Well, I didn't sell the watch. I actually gave it away. I was compelled. I shared that with him, and he goes, Pete, mate, that's wonderful. If that's in your heart, by all means. So I felt a little bit obligated to him as well, because I didn't want to get rid of the watch, but I just felt for my other friend who is sick, and I thought if I can bless him, why not? So be it. So now, bear in mind, guys, I did not share this story to get any brownie points from people. Oh, Pete, you're a good guy. You give watches away. I'm not interested in brownie points. I am a firm believer in what the Bible says. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. In other words, when you do a charitable deed, do it in secret. So I didn't do this so I can get praise from you guys. I did it because I wanted to share for accountability's sake, so that you guys know, because a lot of you guys always ask me what left your watch box so this can come in. So if I'm going to share a story, you're going to think, oh, he's a hypocrite. He said he's never going to get rid of that watch. Well, that's the circumstances why I got rid of it or gave it away. So nonetheless, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Good start to 2025. I'm extremely happy with this watch. It's a new watch that's come into the collection. It just spoke to me and I had to have it. Now that it's fully brushed, it's probably a 1 of 1. It's not even a limited edition of 1,000. It's only a 1 of 1 because it's customized to me. I'm extremely happy. Thank you, Peter and Lydia from Define. Really, just for blessing me with your company and your genuineness. More than happy to come in and buy another watch. I'll have to convince my wife so we can come up for a holiday again. Guys, enjoy the start of the year. Be well, be safe. Enjoy the rest of the holidays for those who are still on holiday. Try not to put too much weight on, and we'll see you in the next one.